Oh, we're used to seeing him performing on stage, but now Alfie is shedding light on a cause very close to his own heart.
He was just 23 when his father, Alf, died from a brain tumour, and now, nearly 3 decades on, he says not enough is being done to fund new treatments. Well, Alfie joins us alongside Hugh Adams from Brain Tumour Research. Really interesting, this, Alfie. Do you want to start by your recollections of your dad, if you don't mind, and the time he was poorly?
Yeah, my dad was full of life. He was this big-hearted, kind soul, and then he got struck down with the brain tumour, and it was a shock. It was we didn't know how it came about, what caused it, and the decline. To see my father go downhill over the 10 months that we had left with him was so sad. It was just so depressing, and there's lots of people out there that go through the similar things that I went through. And
what year was that?
This was 1997. Yeah, when he died.
So one would imagine in that time things have moved forward significantly, but the sense is that it hasn't.
Well, certainly not. We're talking about a cancer here that's the biggest cancer killer of children and adults under the age of 40. And if we're going to improve that stark fact, it's very clear we need to invest in scientific research. We need to invest in the search for the scientists on the bench to get it through to the patients on the bedside. And if we've just been investing 1% of the national cancer spend on brain tumours, which has been the case, that's not going to move the dial along. And so that brain tumour research is very clear. We're campaigning to work with government to get government money into this, to backfill some of the money that charities are already putting into research. It's a team effort, but it's got to be done, or else we won't move things on.
Hugh, you'll know this territory, of course, very well. There is a finite amount of money, at all in the system, and governments look very carefully at where they put their money. You're obviously right to say more money is needed for research. No one's going to deny that. But very difficult decisions do have to be made about, how to prioritise things.
Yeah, I mean, prioritise is exactly the key word here, Charlie. We want brain tumours categorised as a clinical priority. We want innovative thought. And what we actually are asking for here is just parity of funding. So if we see what we've done with breast cancer, see what we've done with leukemia, we can achieve the same with brain cancer, only if we fund to the same levels. So it's parity we're funding, not something different.
And why do you think that has happened over time, that it's had less attention and ultimately less money?
Yeah, I think there's a momentum thing here. I think if you're actually looking for money to fund your research, you get the money, you get some progress, you put in for some more money, you say, this is where we're going, this is what we've achieved, this is what we can achieve with more money, and a sort of a snowball thing happens. That hasn't been happening with brain cancer, and that's what we've got to challenge. And I think there's also the thing about the long-term advocate. So that's why it's so important that someone like Alfie gets involved with us and tells a story of Alfie and says, this is what happened, I've learned that this hasn't moved on in the time since my father passed, and I'm going to do something about it. And so it's a tremendous day for us at Brain Tumour Research to have Alfie with us.
Talk us through what your family went through, because it is a particularly cruel and aggressive form of cancer, or can be. On the brain.
I mean, I was at music college at the time, and I was coming home every single weekend to visit my dad, and every single week there was a change. There was a dramatic change.
It was that quick.
It was so quick. It really affected him in a major way. His emotions, his stages of the process of declining. It was rapid. It was really rapid.
I imagine. Do you want to tell us about this picture we're showing now?
This was pretty soon after he came out of hospital, and I was home from college again one weekend, and I was heartbroken. I was absolutely heartbroken, because he was everything to me. I've had more time without him now than I had with him. And the years that I had with him, I was a teenager, so but there's things like that I've missed out on, where he hasn't seen my career grow, which is one thing, but the most important thing for me is he hasn't seen my children. I never saw him hold my kids or bounce them on his knee or anything like that. And he loved children, he loved his grandkids. And so it's things like that this illness really affects as well.
And because of the symptoms of a brain tumour, it can so often be conflated with other illnesses, even when people go to the GP. Just talk us through that.
Well, that was a surprise. He went to the GP, and the GP turned around to him and just said, "Oh, Alf, you've got the flu." And that was it, and dismissed it, and gave him some antibiotics and painkillers, and that was it. And then he was complaining of these chronic headaches, and he went for an eye test, and the optician looked in his eye and said, "I think you've had a stroke." I'd like you to go to the hospital and have a brain scan. So he went, and that was when they found the tumour.
I suppose, Hugh, that as you said before, Alfie telling a very personal story and recollecting what happened then is really important, above and beyond the idea of the research that goes into it. Just not more knowledge, that more people are aware of how hard it is to spot, or how easily it can happen, and people don't know.
Well, 100%. I mean, people can only support a cause if they know it exists, and yet 1 in 3 people know someone who's been affected by a brain tumour. Now, more of those 1 in 3 people will know about brain tumour research because of Alfie Boe. I mean, the thing about symptoms is it as befits a complex disease, the symptom lists are complex. There are 3 types, really: headaches, seizures, and focal symptoms. Now, the headaches quite often are late presenting, but I would say that 75% of people get headaches and 75% of people don't get brain tumours. Fitting is sometimes the first sign that something's wrong, but then you have these focal symptoms, and that's about where the tumour is in the brain, and so they're very, very varied. They may affect sight, they may affect hearing, they may affect smell, so uniquely complex. And if you've got something that's uniquely complex and uniquely difficult, you need to invest in research to understand it, because otherwise you won't get closer to curing it.
And cancer's just not as simple as one illness, is it? It can take all different forms, particularly within the brain, and you want to raise awareness, especially on tour as well.
Yeah,
what are you asking audiences to do when they come?
While I'm on tour, we're going to be having collections, bucket collections, and then in the programme there's a flyer that goes in there where people can download an app and scan things to donate as much as they possibly can. And the thing is about this is that this illness, if I'm right in saying it affects young and old people. It's not just an old person's illness, it can affect everybody. So my audience is a wide span of people, a wide span of age ranges. So I want to try and just make people aware of that.
Alfie, I don't know how to ask this really, but I dare say over the years there must have been times when you have been singing and your dad must have been looming very large.
Yeah.
Because you sing some very emotional songs that people do. Yeah. It does take them to places, and I can only imagine. I didn't know this part of your story. No. It's part of the point you're making, isn't it? I can only imagine there must be times when this is very big in your head as you're singing.
Yeah, I mean, I have a song in my set that I wrote with a friend, and it's literally called Father, and it's all about him and about what he did for me as a dad. And it does break my heart when I sing it. And then I go straight into singing Bring Him Home from Les Miserables, and it's quite a strong moment in the show. I miss him. Every time I go on stage, I always ask him to say, Dad, give us a hand before I walk out on stage. That's my only ritual when I go out on stage, and he can guarantee he always does.
And could your dad sing?
He was a great singer.
Oh.
He loved to sing, yes. He always sang around the house. Funny little songs, opera songs. He was great. He was always entertaining.
And I read that when he was diagnosed and as he declined, he kept apologising to you, which says something about a person. They're not worrying about themselves, they're worrying about the impact on their family. Yeah,
that was hard hitting, that, when he literally held my hand. And I was holding him when he passed away as well. He was unconscious and couldn't communicate, but being there at the time to see him leave and to feel him leave, it was incredible. But no, he did apologise for the situation he was in, which, it was just what he was like.
Alfie, we very much appreciate you sharing the story. I as always, it's never easy, is it? I know a lot of time has passed, but we saw those pictures of you with your dad. I know it's never easy.
It was his anniversary last weekend, so it always hits home. Yeah.
Sounds like he's with you on stage when you perform.
He is. Thank you so much.
And Hugh, thank you, because it will draw people's attention to the issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alfie goes on tour this month where he'll be raising money for brain tumour research. He begins in Ipswich on the 30th of May.
I think it's the first time we've had Alfie on the set and I said, can you sing now? Not going to. I'm not going to.
It's never too late.
You're in the clear this time.
We nearly did a duet last time, I think.
Nearly. Yeah, thankfully it didn't happen.